She thought she was just helping a quiet old man no one cared about. Until the day a billionaire walked into her diner and said, "He left everything to you." Tasha Williams had nothing, working long shifts in a worn-down Detroit diner, struggling to support her family, and being overlooked by everyone around her. Every morning she served a silent old man others ignored. No conversation, no recognition, just small acts of kindness. That seemed to mean nothing. But what she didn't know was, someone had been watching, and the truth behind that quiet man would turn her entire life upside down. Tasha Williams stood frozen in the middle of a room that didn't feel real. The carpet beneath her feet was thick and soft, swallowing the sound of her worn-out sneakers. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched behind a polished mahogany desk, and revealing a skyline she had only ever seen in movies, glass towers glowing in the late afternoon light, expensive cars crawling like quiet insects far below. Everything in this office whispered money, and none of it belonged to her. She kept her hands clasped tightly in front of her, afraid to touch anything, afraid even to breathe too loudly. Her reflection flickered faintly in the glass walls, dark skin, tired eyes, a diner uniform she had rushed out of just hours earlier. She looked like she had wandered into the wrong life. Across from her stood a man in a tailored navy suit, his posture straight, his voice calm in a way that made everything feel even more unreal. "Miss Williams," he said, adjusting the papers in his hand. "I understand this is unexpected." Tasha swallowed. Her throat felt dry. I think there's been a mistake," she said softly. I don't know why I'm here." The man studied her for a moment, then gave a small, almost sympathetic nod. "There is no mistake." He placed the folder down on the desk with deliberate care. "Mr. Leonard Hayes has named you as the primary beneficiary of his estate." The words didn't land all at once. They drifted, like snowflakes, slow and quiet, until suddenly they became too heavy to ignore. Tasha blinked. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Who?" The man paused, as if unsure how to bridge the distance between their worlds. "Leonard Hayes," he repeated. "The man who passed away last week." Tasha's heart gave a small, confused beat. A man. An old man. Her mind scrambled, searching through faces, through years of long shifts and tired mornings and endless customers who blurred together into one. And then, a table in the corner, a chipped mug, hands that trembled, a silence that had never once been broken. Her breath caught. "The old man?" she asked, her voice barely there. "From the diner?" The man nodded once. "Yes." Tasha let out a soft, disbelieving laugh that sounded nothing like amusement. No, that's not right," she said quickly, shaking her head. He just came in for coffee. He never even talked." She took a step back, her hands lifting slightly as if she could push the moment away. "I think you have the wrong person. Her voice faltered. "I'm just a waitress." The man didn't interrupt her. He simply opened the folder and turned it toward her. "Mr. And Hayes left very specific instructions," he said. "He knew exactly who you were." Tasha hesitated. Slowly, like she was reaching into something dangerous, she leaned forward. There it was. Her name, typed neatly on a page that looked too expensive to belong to her life. Tasha Williams. Her chest tightened. "That doesn't make any sense," she whispered. The man's voice softened just slightly. "He left you everything." The room went completely still. Tasha felt like the air had been pulled out of her lungs. "Everything," she repeated. He nodded. "His personal assets, his business holdings, the property tied to this office, and a charitable foundation he established in his final years." Tasha stared at him. Then she laughed again. But this time it broke halfway through. "No," she said, shaking her head harder now. "No, I don't even know him. I mean, I saw him, yeah, but—" Her voice cracked. "I just brought him food." The words hung in the air. Simple, small, meaningless. At least that's what she had always believed. The man closed the folder gently. To him, he said, it was not just food. Silence wrapped around them. Tasha's eyes burned, but she didn't understand why. Her mind raced, trying to catch up, trying to make sense of something that refused to be logical. She saw his hands again, shaking, struggling to hold a spoon. She saw the way people looked at him, like he was in the way, like he didn't belong. She saw herself stepping in without thinking, cutting his pancakes, pouring his coffee before he had to ask, sliding an extra biscuit onto his plate when she knew he didn't have enough change. Tiny things, us invisible things, things no one ever noticed. Her chest tightened again, deeper this time. "Why me?" she whispered. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into the folder and pulled out a small, sealed envelope. "He asked that you receive this first," he said. Tasha stared at it. Her name was written across the front in careful, slightly uneven handwriting. Her fingers trembled as she took it. The paper felt heavier than it should have. She didn't open it. Not yet. She wasn't ready. Because something inside her, something quiet but certain, told her that once she did, nothing would ever be the same again. Outside the window, the city hummed with life. Cars moved. Lights flickered on. People rushed past, chasing things she had never had time to chase. But inside that room, time stood still. Yet, and somewhere deep in her memory, a cold morning began to take shape. A flickering neon sign. The smell of grease and burnt coffee. The sound of a bus hissing to a stop outside. The first time she saw him. The old man no one wanted. The man who had changed everything. Tasha closed her eyes, and the world shifted. Back to where it all began. Back to a morning that felt just like every other one. Except it wasn't. Because that was the day a silent stranger walked into her life and saw her when no one else ever did. Who was he really? And why had he chosen her? The answer was waiting, buried in the past, and it was about to change everything she thought she knew about kindness, forever. The morning air in Detroit cut sharp against Tasha's skin as she stepped off the city bus, when pulling her thin jacket tighter around her chest. The sky was still a dull gray, the kind that made it feel like the sun had forgotten this part of town entirely. The neon sign outside Marlowe's diner flickered weakly, half the letters burned out, the rest buzzing like they were barely holding on. Grease stains marked the windows. The door creaked every time it opened, like it had something to complain about, just like everything else in Tasha's life. She pushed inside, the familiar smell of burnt coffee and fried oil wrapping around her instantly. The low hum of an old refrigerator filled the quiet. Somewhere in the back, a radio played soft static over a country song. "You're late." Derek's voice hit her before she even made it to the counter. Tasha glanced up. He stood behind the register, arms crossed, eyes already narrowed, and his white shirt was too clean for this place, like he didn't belong here but refused to leave. "I'm 3 minutes early," she said gently, checking the clock on the wall. Derek didn't even look at it. "You're 3 minutes from being replaced," he snapped. Tasha didn't argue. She never did. Instead, she nodded and moved past him, tying her apron around her waist. Her hands moved quickly, automatically, grabbing menus, wiping down tables, stacking cups, every motion practiced, every motion quiet, because quiet was safer. By the time the first customers came in, she had already been working for nearly an hour. Men in construction jackets, a tired nurse with dark circles under her eyes, a couple arguing softly over bills, the usual faces, the usual heaviness. Tasha moved between tables with a steady smile. "What can I get you?" "Hey, honey?" "Yes, ma'am. I'll have that right out." Her voice was warm, even when the responses weren't. "Make it fast. Don't mess it up this time." "Didn't I ask for extra syrup?" Each comment slid off her like rain she didn't have time to feel, because there were other things waiting for her outside this diner, like the envelope taped to her apartment door that morning. Final notice. She could still see it in her mind, still feel the way her stomach dropped. Rent overdue. Again. She had peeled it off carefully, folding it into her pocket like maybe if she treated it gently, it wouldn't hurt as much. But it did. Everything did. Between shifts, she stepped outside for a moment, the cold air hitting her face again. She pulled out her phone and checked her messages. One from her little brother, Jamal. School says I need new books." Another from the pharmacy. "Medication ready for pickup." And one she hadn't opened yet, from the landlord. She didn't need to. She already knew what it said. Tasha closed her eyes for a second. Just 1 second. Then she tucked the phone away and went back inside. Because life didn't pause just because you were tired. The lunch rush came hard. Plates clattered, orders piled up, voices overlapped. Derek barked instructions from behind the counter like he was trying to control chaos with sheer volume. "Tasha, table 4's been waiting." "I'm on it," she said quickly. She grabbed 2 plates and hurried across the floor, weaving between chairs, careful not to bump anyone. But it still happened. A man in a pressed suit leaned back suddenly, his elbow catching her tray. One plate tilted, and then crashed. Food scattered across the floor. The diner went quiet for a split second. Then, "Are you serious right now?" the man snapped, standing up. "Do you even know how to do your job?" "I'm so sorry," Tasha said immediately, already crouching to clean it up. "It was an accident." "An accident," he cut in, his voice rising. "You people always got an excuse." The words hit harder than the tone. Tasha froze for just a moment, just long enough for it to sink in. Then she kept moving, because stopping meant feeling it, and feeling it meant breaking. Derek stormed over. "What happened now?" he demanded. "She dropped my food," the man said sharply. Derek didn't even ask for her side. "Take it out of her pay," he said flatly. Tasha's hands tightened around the broken plate pieces. "Yes, sir," she whispered. But the man scoffed and sat back down, already scrolling through his phone like she didn't exist anymore, like none of it mattered. Tasha finished cleaning, her movements slower now, heavier. She brought out a replacement plate without another word. No tip. Of course not. When the rush finally died down, the diner felt hollow, like something had been drained out of it. Tasha stood by the counter, staring at the register. Numbers didn't lie, and these ones were bad. Really bad. "Don't stand there," Derek said, walking past her. "Tables don't clean themselves." She nodded and grabbed a rag, but her hands weren't as steady anymore. Not after that. Not after everything. She moved toward the corner of the diner, the quietest spot, the table no one ever wanted, but the one closest to the window that let in just enough cold air to make it uncomfortable. She wiped it slowly, carefully, because even this mattered, even when no one saw it. Outside, a bus hissed to a stop. The doors opened. People stepped off. Some rushed past, some lingered. And then she saw him. An old man, thin, slow, wearing a coat that had seen too many winters. He stood there for a moment, like he was deciding whether to come in or keep walking. No one else noticed, but Tasha did, because she always noticed the people no one looked at. The door creaked open. The bell above it gave a weak ring, and the man stepped inside. No one greeted him. No one smiled. No one moved. Derek didn't even glance up. One of the other waitresses sighed under her breath. "Great," she muttered. "He's back." Tasha looked at her. "Who?" "The old guy," she said, rolling her eyes. "He comes in every morning, takes forever, pays in coins, doesn't tip." She grabbed her tray and walked away. "Not worth it," she added. Tasha turned back toward the door. The old man was already making his way to the corner table, the one she had just cleaned. He moved slowly, each step careful, like the ground might give out beneath him. No one stopped him. No one helped him. No one cared. Tasha watched him sit down, watched the way his hands rested on the table. Slight tremor, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. And for some reason, she was. Behind her, Derek's voice cut through the air. "Leave him, Ose. Mahasosat. He'll order when he's ready. If he orders." Tasha hesitated, just for a second. Then she picked up a mug, once filled it with fresh coffee, and walked toward the corner table. Because something in her chest, something quiet, something stubborn, wouldn't let her do anything else. As she approached, the old man didn't look up, didn't speak, didn't acknowledge her at all. Tasha set the mug down gently in front of him. "Good morning, sir," she said softly. No response. Just silence. But it wasn't empty. It felt heavy, like there was something inside it waiting, watching. Tasha gave a small smile anyway. "Take your time," she added. She turned to leave, but just before she walked away, she felt it. A shift, subtle, almost invisible. The old man's fingers moved slightly closer to the cup, and for the briefest moment, his eyes lifted, meeting hers. Not long, just a second. But it was enough to make her pause. Just enough to make something in her chest tighten in a way she didn't understand. Then he looked back down, and the moment was gone. Tasha walked away slowly, back into the noise, back into the life that never stopped demanding more than she had. But something had changed, just a little, at a table no one cared about, with a man no one wanted. A story had just begun, and neither of them knew how much it was going to matter. Why did he come back every day, if no one wanted him there? The question stayed with Tasha longer than she expected. It followed her through the rest of her shift, lingering in the background like the low hum of the diner's refrigerator. Even as plates clattered and orders piled up, her eyes kept drifting back to the corner table. He hadn't moved much. The old man sat quietly, when both hands wrapped around the coffee mug like he was holding on to something more than warmth. The steam curled up slowly, fading into the air, untouched. He didn't sip right away. He just held it. Like it mattered. Like it was enough. "Don't waste your time on him." The voice came from behind her. Lisa, another waitress, leaned against the counter, chewing gum lazily. Tasha glanced over. "What do you mean?" Lisa followed her gaze to the corner table and scoffed. "That one?" she said. "He's been coming in for months. Same routine, same seat. Orders the cheapest thing on the menu, if he orders at all." She crossed her arms. "And when the bill comes, out come the coins, always exact, never a penny more." Tasha looked back at him. "He doesn't tip," Lisa added flatly. "Not once." Tasha didn't answer. Lisa shook her head. "Oh, you're new enough to still care. That'll wear off." She pushed herself off the counter and grabbed her tray. "Trust me," she said as she walked past. "People like that don't need saving." Tasha watched her go. Then she looked back at the old man. He still hadn't touched the coffee. Something about that didn't sit right. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked over again. Slowly this time. Carefully. "Sir?" she said gently. No response. She stepped closer. "Would you like something to eat today?" For a moment, nothing. Just the faint sound of traffic outside and the clink of dishes in the background. Then, the slightest movement. His fingers tightened around the mug. And without looking up, he spoke. "Toast." The word was quiet. Rough. Like it hadn't been used in a long time. Tasha blinked, as it caught her off guard. But she smiled softly. "Of course," she said. "I'll bring it right out." She turned quickly, almost afraid the moment would disappear if she lingered too long. Back at the counter, Derek glanced at her. "He order something?" he asked. "Just toast." Derek snorted. "Figures." Tasha ignored him and placed the order. The kitchen bell rang a few minutes later. 2 slices of toast, slightly uneven, edges a little too dark. She picked up the plate and carried it carefully across the diner. As she set it down in front of him, she noticed it again. His hands. The tremor was stronger now, more noticeable. He reached for the knife beside the plate, tried to steady it, but it slipped slightly in his grip. Tasha paused. Just for a second. She could walk away. She should walk away. Oh, that's what everyone else did. That's what made sense, but instead, she reached for the knife. "Here," she said softly. "Let me." The old man froze, not pulling away, not accepting it either, just still. Tasha gently cut the toast into smaller pieces. Slow, careful movements. No rush, no attention drawn, like it was the most natural thing in the world. When she finished, she slid the plate back toward him. "There you go," she said with a small smile. Still no thank you, still no eye contact. But this time, he didn't hesitate. He picked up a piece, brought it to his mouth, and ate. Tasha stepped back. Something in her chest eased just a little. She didn't wait for anything else. Didn't expect anything else. She simply turned and went back to work. Across the room, Derek watched the whole thing, and his expression tightened. "What are you doing?" he muttered as she passed. "Helping a customer." "That's not a customer," he said sharply. "That's a problem." Tasha stopped, looked at him. "He paid," she said quietly. Derek leaned closer. "Barely." His voice dropped. "You don't get paid to babysit, Tasha. You get paid to serve people who actually matter." The words landed harder than she expected, but she didn't react, didn't argue. She just nodded. "Yes, sir," and walked away. Because arguing wouldn't change anything. It never did. The rest of the shift moved on. People came and went. Orders were taken. Mistakes were made. Voices rose and fell. But every now and then, Tasha found herself glancing at the corner table, watching. Not in a way she could explain. Just noticing. When he finished eating, he didn't leave right away. He sat there for a while, hands resting on the table, eyes distant, like he was somewhere else entirely. When he finally stood up, it took effort, slow, careful. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small handful of coins, set them down on the table. Exact change. Just like Lisa said. Tasha saw it from across the room. She hesitated, then walked over. By the time she got there, he was already heading toward the door. She glanced down at the coins, counted them. Every cent accounted for. No more, no less. She looked up. The door creaked open. The bell gave that same weak ring, and just like that, he was gone. out into the cold, into a world that didn't seem to have a place for him. Tasha stood there for a moment, staring at the door. Then she picked up the coins, dropped them into the register, and wiped down the table again. Same as before. Same routine. Nothing special. Nothing important. At least, that's what it looked like. Later that afternoon, as the light outside dimmed and the diner quieted down, Lisa leaned over the counter again. "He'll be back tomorrow," she said casually. Tasha glanced at her. "You sound sure?" Lisa shrugged. "He always comes back." Tasha looked toward the empty table, the one that somehow felt different now. "Why?" she asked softly. Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Why what?" "Why does he keep coming here?" Tasha said. "If nobody wants him here?" Lisa popped her gum. "Same reason anyone does," she said. "Habit?" She grabbed her bag and slung it over her shoulder. "Or maybe he's got nowhere else to go." She headed for the door. "Either way," she added, "oh, it's not your problem." The bell rang as she left. Silence settled in again. Tasha stayed where she was, looking at that table, thinking. Because something about that answer didn't feel right. Not completely. There was something else. Something she couldn't quite see yet. But she could feel it. Like a thread just beneath the surface, waiting to be pulled. Outside, the sky darkened. Streetlights flickered on. And somewhere in the distance, a bus hissed to a stop. Tasha grabbed her jacket and headed out. The cold hit her again, sharper now. She walked past the corner, past the broken fence, past the row of tired apartment buildings that all looked the same. But her mind wasn't on home. It was still back there, in that corner booth, with a man who said almost nothing, but somehow felt like he had more to say than anyone else she'd ever met. Tomorrow he would come back. Lisa was sure of it. And for some reason, Tasha was too. But the real question wasn't whether he'd return. It was, why did it matter so much that he did? Tasha didn't have an answer. But the next morning, she found herself stepping off the bus just a little faster. The cold air bit harder than usual, the wind slicing through the narrow streets, carrying the smell of exhaust and damp concrete. A light drizzle had started, turning the pavement slick and reflective under the dull glow of streetlights. Marlowe's diner looked the same as always. Flickering sign, fogged-up windows, the same tired building barely holding itself together. But something inside her felt different. She pushed the door open. The bell rang. A warm air wrapped around her, along with the familiar sounds, coffee brewing, plates clinking. Derek already complaining about something. "You're early," he muttered without looking up. Tasha didn't respond. Her eyes moved straight to the corner table. Empty. Her chest tightened. She didn't know why. It didn't matter. It shouldn't matter. She grabbed her apron and tied it quickly, forcing herself into routine. Orders, coffee, menus, smiles. But every few minutes, her eyes drifted back, still empty. "You keep staring at that table, it's not going to fill itself," Derek snapped. "I'm working," she said quietly. "Then act like it." She nodded and turned away. Time moved slowly that morning. Too slowly. The diner filled, then thinned, then filled again. Still no sign of him. Tasha told herself it didn't mean anything. And people missed days. People stopped coming. People disappeared all the time. That was just life. Still, when the door opened again, her head turned before she could stop it. And there he was, standing in the doorway. The same coat, the same careful posture, the same quiet presence that somehow shifted the air around him. Tasha exhaled, the tension in her chest loosening without her permission. No one else reacted. No one greeted him. No one cared. But she did. She picked up a mug before he even took a step. By the time he reached the corner table, the coffee was already waiting. "Good morning," she said softly as she set it down. This time, he looked at her a second longer. Not much, but longer. Enough to notice. Enough to feel. Tasha gave a small nod and stepped back. She didn't ask what he wanted. Didn't push. Or didn't rush. She had learned something yesterday. Some people needed space more than words. A few minutes passed, then 10, then 15. The coffee cooled slightly, steam fading into nothing. And still, he hadn't touched it. Tasha watched from across the room. Something wasn't right. She walked over again, slower this time. "Sir?" she said gently. No response. His eyes were fixed on the table. Not empty. Not unfocused. Just distant. Like he was somewhere far away. Tasha followed his gaze. His hands rested beside the mug, and that's when she saw it clearly. The tremor. Stronger than yesterday. His fingers twitched slightly, like they were trying to remember how to move. She hesitated. Her heart beat a little faster. Then she reached forward. Careful. Steady. She wrapped her hand lightly around the mug and lifted it just enough. "Let me help," she said softly. No reaction. No resistance. She guided the mug closer to him, adjusted it so his grip wouldn't slip. His fingers closed around it slowly, uncertain, then tighter. The warmth spread through his hands, and for the first time, he took a sip. Tasha smiled. It was small, almost invisible, but real. She stepped back again, not waiting, not expecting anything, just doing what felt right. Behind her, Lisa shook her head. "You're doing too much," she whispered as Tasha passed. Tasha didn't stop, didn't argue, because she knew what it looked like. It looked like wasted effort. It looked like time spent on someone who didn't give anything back. But it didn't feel that way, not to her. The lunch rush came and went, but voices rose, plates slammed. Derek snapped at everyone within reach. But somehow, that corner table stayed quiet, untouched by the chaos, like it existed in a different world. Later, when the diner slowed down again, Tasha brought him a plate. She hadn't asked, just made a choice. Toast, same as yesterday, cut into smaller pieces. She set it down in front of him without a word. He looked at it, then at her. A pause, longer this time. He reached for a piece. His hand shook. The toast slipped, fell back onto the plate. Tasha didn't think, didn't hesitate. She picked up the piece, broke it into something smaller, placed it gently between his fingers. "There you go," she said quietly. Their hands brushed for a second. Just a second. But it was enough. Enough for something to pass between them. Something unspoken. Something human. He held the piece tighter this time, brought it to his mouth, and ate. Tasha stayed there a moment longer than she meant to, watching. Not out of obligation, but because something inside her wanted to make sure he was okay. Then she stepped back again, returned to her work. The world kept moving. Orders, voices, time. But that small moment, it stayed. It lingered. Like a quiet echo. When he finished eating, he sat there again. Same as before. Still, thoughtful. As if the act of eating wasn't the point. As if something else mattered more. Tasha wiped down a nearby table, glancing over occasionally. And then, something changed. He reached into his coat, pulled out the coins, set them down. But this time, one coin rolled slightly, out of place, different. Tasha noticed it immediately. It caught the light differently. Cleaner, shinier, almost new. She stepped closer, carefully, picked it up. It felt heavier than it should have. She turned it slightly in her fingers. It wasn't just any coin. There was something off about it, something deliberate. She looked up. The old man was already standing, heading toward the door. Tasha hesitated. "Sir?" she called softly. He stopped, just for a moment, didn't turn around, didn't speak. But he didn't leave either. Tasha stepped forward, holding the coin. "I think you dropped this," she said. A pause, then he spoke. Quiet, measured. "Keep it." The words were clearer this time, still rough, but intentional. Tasha blinked. Are you sure?" He gave the smallest nod, then pushed the door open. The bell rang, a cold air rushed in, and he was gone, just like that. Tasha stood there, the coin still in her hand, her heart beating a little faster than it should. She looked down at it again, turned it between her fingers. It didn't look like much, but it didn't feel like nothing either. Behind her, Derek's voice broke the moment. "You gonna stand there all day, or you gonna work?" Tasha closed her hand around the coin, slipped it into her apron pocket. "I'm working," she said softly. But as she moved back into the rhythm of the diner, something had shifted. Again. Because this time, it didn't feel like she was just helping someone. It felt like she was being seen, and she didn't know why. What was so special about that coin? Tasha kept turning it over in her fingers that night. It sat in the palm of her hand as she walked home, streetlights stretching long shadows across cracked sidewalks. The wind had picked up, pushing bits of paper and dust along the curb. Somewhere down the block, a siren wailed and faded. The coin didn't look like much, just a quarter, but it felt different, heavier, warmer, like it had been held for a long time before it ever reached her. By the time she reached her apartment building, her fingers were numb from the cold. The front door stuck like always. She had to shoulder it open. Inside, the hallway smelled faintly of mildew and something burnt. "Tasha?" a voice called. "In here," she replied, stepping into their small unit. The lights flickered as she turned them on. Her grandmother sat in a worn recliner near the window, a blanket draped over her legs. The television played softly in the background, volume low. "How was work?" her grandmother asked, her voice gentle but tired. "Same as always," Tasha said, forcing a small smile. Jamal sat at the kitchen table, books spread out in front of him, though he wasn't reading. "They sent me home today," he said without looking up. Tasha paused. "Why?" "Didn't have the right textbook," he muttered. Her chest tightened. "I'll figure something out," she said quietly. Jamal nodded, but his eyes stayed on the table. Tasha moved to the kitchen, setting her bag down. She pulled out the small envelope from the pharmacy and stared at it for a second. Medication. Necessary. Expensive. She exhaled slowly. Then she reached into her apron pocket and pulled out the coin. It caught the dim light from the overhead bulb. Her grandmother noticed. "What's that?" she asked. Tasha hesitated. "Oh, just something a customer gave me," she said. Her grandmother smiled faintly. "Then it must mean something." Tasha looked at the coin again. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. Either way, she slipped it onto the table, because right now it wasn't going to pay the bills. The next morning came too fast. The same cold, the same bus, the same tired streets. But something inside her felt steadier, like a quiet decision had been made. At the diner, the routine picked up right where it left off. Coffee, orders, voices. Derek complaining. Nothing new, and yet everything felt just slightly different. Because now, she was waiting. Not for anything specific, just waiting. When the door opened, she didn't look right away. She told herself she wouldn't. But when she finally did, he was there. Same coat, and same slow steps, same silence, and something in her chest eased again. She grabbed a mug before he even sat down. "Good morning," she said softly, setting the coffee in front of him. This time, he gave the smallest nod. It was barely noticeable, but it was there. Tasha noticed. She always noticed. The day moved forward, but she found herself checking on him more often. Not hovering, not making a scene, just making sure. The coffee stayed warm. The plate was ready. The space was quiet, like it was meant to be. Midway through the shift, something happened. A little girl wandered into the diner alone, no more than 6 years old, her coat too big for her small frame, her eyes wide and searching. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Have you seen my mom?" The room barely reacted. Not a few people glanced up, then went back to their meals. Tasha stepped forward immediately. "Hey, sweetheart," she said gently, crouching down to her level. "What's your name?" "Lily," the girl whispered. "Okay, Lily," Tasha said, her voice calm. "We're gonna find her, all right?" The girl nodded, clutching the sleeve of her coat. Tasha looked around. No one claimed her. No one even looked concerned. She stood up and took Lily's hand. "Come with me." She walked her to the counter. "Derek," she said, "we've got a lost kid." He barely glanced over. "Call it in," he said. "Not my problem." Tasha clenched her jaw. "It is if she's in here." He rolled his eyes. "Fine. Do what you want. Just don't let it slow you down." Tasha didn't respond. She grabbed the phone and made the call. Then she knelt back down beside Lily. "Oh, you hungry?" she asked softly. The girl nodded. Tasha smiled. "I got you." She brought out a small plate. Pancakes, cut into perfect little squares, a side of fruit, and extra syrup. She set it down gently. "Take your time." Lily smiled for the first time. Across the room, the old man watched. Quiet. Still. But watching. Tasha didn't notice. She stayed with Lily until the girl's mother came rushing in, breathless, eyes wide with panic. "Oh my God, Lily!" The girl ran into her arms. "I couldn't find you," she cried. "I'm right here," her mother said, holding her tightly. "I'm right here." She looked up at Tasha. "Thank you," she said, her voice shaking. "I don't know what I would have done." Tasha gave a small smile. "She was brave," she said. The woman nodded, wiping her eyes. Well, she left a generous tip on the counter before leaving. Derek noticed that. Of course he did. He gave Tasha a quick glance. Didn't say anything. But his expression softened. Just slightly. Across the diner, the old man hadn't moved, but his eyes were still on her. Tasha returned to his table later, refilled his coffee, adjusted his plate. Same as always. But this time, when she stepped back, he spoke again. You didn't have to. The words were quiet, careful, but clear. Tasha blinked. It's okay, she said softly. She needed help. He looked at her, really looked this time. Not just a glance, not just a moment, but something deeper, something measuring. Then he nodded once and went back to his silence. Tasha stood there for a second longer, then turned away, her heart beating just a little faster. Well, because something about that look, it stayed. The rest of the day passed like usual, but underneath it all, there was a feeling, growing, quiet, unseen, just like everything else she did. But this time, someone was noticing, and she didn't know how much that was going to matter. Why was he watching her so closely? Tasha didn't have time to think about it, because life had a way of pulling her back down the moment she started to wonder. That afternoon, the diner filled faster than usual. A sudden rush, louder, sharper, more impatient than normal. The kind that made everything feel tight. Like one wrong move could set the whole place off. Derek was already on edge. Move faster, he barked. We're not running a charity in here. The words echoed louder than he probably intended. Tasha heard them. So did the old man. Oh, but no one said anything. They never did. Orders stacked up, coffee spilled, plates clattered. Tasha moved quickly, weaving through the narrow aisles, her shoes sticking slightly to the greasy floor. Her hands worked on instinct now. Refill, serve, clear, repeat. But even in the chaos, she didn't forget the corner table. She never did. She passed by quietly, setting down fresh coffee without interrupting him. He nodded. Just once. It was becoming familiar now, a language without words. Then, it happened. A man in a tailored coat, expensive, sharp, out of place, walked in with an air that shifted the room. Not loud, but commanding. He sat near the window, not far from the old man's table. Tasha approached with her usual calm. Afternoon, sir. What can I get for you? Black coffee, he said without looking up. And make it quick. Yes, sir. She brought it out within a minute. But when she set it down, the man barely acknowledged her. Instead, his eyes drifted toward the corner, toward the old man. A slight frown formed, then a look of irritation. He leaned back in his chair. You let people like that eat in here? He said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Tasha stiffened. Excuse me? He gestured subtly. The man over there, he said. He looks like he walked in off the street. The words hung heavy. Some customers looked up. Some looked away. No one intervened. Tasha kept her voice steady. He's a customer, sir. The man scoffed. A customer, he said. With what? Spare change? A few people chuckled quietly. Tasha felt it. That familiar heat in her chest. That mix of anger and something deeper. No, something older. But she didn't raise her voice. Didn't lose control. He pays for his food, she said calmly, just like everyone else. The man leaned forward slightly. You really think that's the same thing? Tasha met his gaze. Yes, sir, she said. Silence stretched between them. Uncomfortable. Heavy, then. He shook his head. Unbelievable, he muttered. Places like this never change. Tasha didn't respond. She turned and walked away, because she knew how this ended. It always ended the same way. Behind the counter, Derek grabbed her arm as she passed. What are you doing? He hissed. Serving a customer. You're arguing with a paying customer, he snapped. I wasn't arguing, she said quietly. Derek's grip tightened slightly. You don't get paid to have opinions, he said. You get paid to keep people happy. Tasha glanced toward the man, then toward the old man in the corner, still silent, still eating slowly. Like none of it was happening, or like he had heard it all before. I am keeping people happy, she said softly. Derek let go of her arm. Not the ones that matter, he replied coldly. The words hit harder than the man's earlier comment, because this time, they came from someone who controlled whether she could pay rent. Tasha nodded, understood, but something inside her didn't agree. The rest of the shift moved on, but the tension lingered. The man finished his coffee, left cash on the table, far more than necessary, and walked out without another word. Derek noticed that. Of course he did. He pocketed the tip quickly, didn't share it, didn't say anything, just moved on, but like always. Later, when things slowed down again, Derek pulled Tasha aside. You keep this up, he said quietly, and you're not gonna last here. Tasha swallowed. I didn't do anything wrong. Derek looked at her like she had missed the point entirely. That's exactly the problem, he said. She didn't understand. Or maybe she did, but didn't want to accept it. Because if doing the right thing was wrong, then what was left? She went back to work, quiet, focused, but something inside her felt heavier now, more fragile, more tired. The kind of tired that didn't come from long hours, but from being unseen, unheard, unvalued, across the room. The old man sat there, watching. When Tasha approached his table again, she didn't say anything. She just refilled his coffee, adjusted the plate slightly, same as always. Oh, but this time, he spoke. Why? The word was soft, but it carried weight. Tasha paused. Why what? He looked at her, eyes steady, clearer than before. Why do you do it? She frowned slightly. Do what? He gestured faintly around them. This, he said. All of it. Tasha hesitated. She hadn't expected the question, hadn't thought about it that way. It's my job, she said. He shook his head. No. Just that. No explanation. No elaboration. Just no. Tasha felt something shift, because he wasn't wrong. She looked down at the table, then back at him. Because someone has to, she said quietly. The words surprised her. She hadn't planned them. They just came. The old man studied her for a moment, longer than usual, then he nodded. Not small this time, not subtle, clear, intentional. Oh, like something had just been confirmed. Tasha felt her chest tighten again, but not in a bad way, in a way she couldn't explain. She stepped back, returned to her work. But the moment stayed with her, because something about that question and her answer felt important, even if she didn't know why. As the day ended, the diner emptied out slowly. Chairs stacked, lights dimmed. Derek counted the register. Tasha wiped down the last table, the corner one, always last. She ran the cloth across the surface, slow and careful, like it mattered, like it deserved that. When she looked up, the old man was standing, ready to leave. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the coins, set them down, exact, as always. But this time, there was no extra coin, no shine, no difference, Just the same routine. Oh, Tasha picked them up, nodded slightly. Good night, sir. He paused at the door for a moment. Then, without turning, he spoke. Tomorrow. Just that. Then he stepped out into the cold. The bell rang softly behind him. Tasha stood there, holding the coins, her heart beating just a little faster again. Tomorrow. He had never said that before. Not once. What was going to happen tomorrow? Tasha lay awake longer than she should have that night. The apartment was quiet, except for the faint hum of the heater struggling against the cold. Jamal had fallen asleep at the table again, books scattered beneath his head. Her grandmother's soft breathing came from the other room, steady but fragile. Tasha sat on the edge of her bed, the coin still resting in her palm. Tomorrow. The word echoed in her mind, but it hadn't sounded casual. It hadn't sounded like habit. It sounded like something planned. She closed her fingers around the coin, then finally lay back, staring at the ceiling until sleep found her in pieces. Morning came too soon. Gray skies again. Colder than before. The bus ride felt longer, even though it wasn't. Every stop stretched, every second dragged, and for the first time in a long time, Tasha felt nervous. Not about work, not about Derek, not even about the bills waiting for her at home, but about him. When she stepped off the bus, her pace quickened without her realizing. The diner came into view, same flickering sign, same tired windows, but today, it felt like something was waiting. She pushed the door open. The bell rang. Warmth hit her face. Voices, coffee, movement, everything normal. Except the corner table, already occupied. He was there, earlier than usual, sitting still, waiting. Tasha paused for just a moment, then moved. She grabbed a mug, filled it, walked straight to him. Good morning, she said softly. He looked up immediately. No delay this time. No hesitation. Morning, he replied. The word came easier, stronger. Tasha blinked. It was different. Everything about him felt different. She set the coffee down. Did you want toast today? She asked. He nodded. Yes. No pause. No struggle. Just yes. Tasha smiled faintly. I'll bring it right out. Back at the counter, Derek glanced at her. You're already on that table? He asked. He's here early. Derek shrugged. Doesn't matter. Don't let it slow you down. Tasha didn't respond. She placed the order. But something about the moment stayed with her because today, he wasn't just sitting. He was present, watching. When she brought the toast out, it was the same as always, cut small, easy to manage. She set it down, but before she could step away, he spoke. You have a brother. Tasha froze, her hand still resting lightly on the edge of the table. She looked at him. Yes, she said slowly. I do. How old? 16. He nodded slightly. Still in school? Tasha hesitated. The question felt too specific. Yeah, she said. He is. The old man studied her face, not in a rude way, not in a prying way, just carefully, like he was trying to understand something. And your grandmother, he added. She's not well. Tasha's breath caught. How do you know that? She asked quietly. He didn't answer right away, and instead he picked up a piece of toast, ate it slowly, then said, "I pay attention." Tasha felt a chill run through her. Not fear, not exactly, just awareness. Because she realized something. He had been watching her, not in a strange way, not in a threatening way, but in a way that meant he had noticed things no one else had. She stepped back slightly. "That's not something most people do," she said. "No," he agreed. A pause, then, "They don't." Tasha didn't know what to say. She had spent so long being invisible, blending into the background, doing what needed to be done without anyone looking twice. And now, someone had been looking, for a long time. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her again. "You're tired." She froze, her back still to him. "It's part of the job," she said softly. "Oh, no," he said again, that same quiet certainty. "No." Tasha slowly turned back. He was watching her, really watching her, not just seeing what she did, but seeing her. "You carry too much," he said. The words landed deep, too deep, because they were true, and she hadn't said them out loud. Not to anyone, not even to herself. Tasha swallowed. "I'm fine," she said quickly. He didn't argue, didn't push, just nodded. Like he understood why she said it. Like he didn't need her to admit it. The moment stretched, then broke. Because the diner didn't stop. It never stopped. "Tasha," Derek called. "Table 3. "I'm coming," she said. She turned quickly. Back to work. Back to noise. Back to everything she knew. But her mind stayed behind. At that table. With those words. The rest of the shift felt different. More sharper. More aware. She noticed things she hadn't before. The way he watched people. Not just her. Everyone. The way his eyes lingered on small moments. A customer helping someone pick up a dropped fork. A tired nurse rubbing her eyes between sips of coffee. A man counting his money twice before paying. He saw everything and said nothing. Until it mattered. Later that afternoon, Tasha stepped outside for a moment. Just to breathe. Just to reset. The cold air hit her again. Clear. Honest. Unlike everything inside. She leaned against the wall, closed her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she let herself feel it. The weight. The exhaustion. The quiet kind of pain that didn't make noise but never left. "You don't have to carry it alone." The voice came from behind her. She turned. He stood there, just outside the diner. The cold didn't seem to bother him. "How long have you been there?" she asked. "Long enough," he said. Tasha looked down, then back up. "Why do you keep asking me things like that?" she asked. "Because they matter," he replied. "To who?" she asked. "To me," he said simply. The honesty caught her off guard. She didn't know what to do with it, so she deflected. "You don't even know me." He tilted his head slightly. "I know enough." A pause. Then, "You choose to be kind," he said, "even when it costs you." Tasha let out a small breath. "That's not special," she said. "It is," he replied. She shook her head. "No, it's just what you're supposed to do." He watched her for a moment, then said, "No," again, that same quiet certainty. "It's what you choose to do." The difference hung in the air, heavy, unavoidable. Tasha looked away, because something about that felt too real, too close. "You should get back inside," she said. He nodded, but didn't move right away. Tomorrow, he said again. Tasha frowned slightly. What about tomorrow? He didn't answer, just gave a small nod, and walked back inside, leaving her there, standing in the cold, with more questions than before, and a feeling she couldn't shake. Something was coming, something she wasn't ready for, and whatever it was going to change everything. What did he mean by tomorrow? Tasha woke up before her alarm. The room was still dark, the early morning light barely pushing through the thin curtains. For a moment, she lay there, staring at the ceiling, just trying to shake the feeling that something was off. Tomorrow. The word still echoed in her mind. She got up quickly, moving through her routine faster than usual. Coffee for her grandmother. A quiet check on Jamal, still asleep at the table with his books. A glance at the unopened bill on the counter. Everything the same. But inside, not the same at all. The bus ride felt longer again. Every stop, every delay stretched her patience thin. She tapped her fingers against her knee, staring out the window as the city slowly woke up. Storefronts rolled open. People hurried past with their heads down. Life moving, as always. But her focus was fixed on one thing. The diner, the corner table, him. When she finally stepped off the bus, the cold air didn't even register. She walked faster, almost running, as the neon sign flickered as she approached. The door creaked open. The bell rang, and for a second, she didn't look. She told herself not to, but she did anyway. The corner table, empty. Her chest tightened. She shook it off. He was early yesterday. Maybe he was just late today. She moved behind the counter, tying her apron with quick, tight motions. You're in a hurry today, Derek muttered. Just getting started, she said. He gave her a look, but didn't push. The morning shift began. Customers came in. Coffee poured. Orders moved. Time passed. 10 minutes. 20, 30. Tasha kept glancing at the door. Every time it opened, her eyes lifted. Every time, it wasn't him. You expecting someone? Lisa asked, noticing. Tasha shook her head. No. Lisa smirked. Looks like it. Tasha didn't respond. She just kept working, but the feeling in her chest, it didn't go away. By mid-morning, the diner was full. Noise filled the space. Plates clanged. Voices overlapped. But that corner table, still empty. Tasha wiped it down again, even though it didn't need it, even though no one had sat there. She smoothed her hand across the surface, then stepped back. Something wasn't right. He's not coming today. Derek's voice came from behind her. She turned. What? That old guy, he said. People like that don't keep schedules. He probably found somewhere else. Tasha frowned slightly. He's been coming every day. Derek shrugged. Not anymore. He walked off like it didn't matter, like none of it mattered. Tasha stood there for a moment, then forced herself to move, because she didn't have a choice. And work didn't stop. Life didn't stop, even when something felt wrong. The lunch rush hit harder than usual, demanding, fast, unforgiving. Tasha moved through it on autopilot. But inside, she was distracted. A customer called out. Miss, can I get some more coffee? Of course, she said quickly. She poured the coffee, set it down, smiled, moved on. But her mind kept drifting back. To the door, to the empty seat, to the word he had said. Tomorrow. The shift stretched on, longer than it should have. He still didn't come. By late afternoon, the diner quieted, the noise faded, the air felt heavier. Tasha stood near the window, watching the street outside. People passed. Cars moved. Life continued. But there was no sign of him. Lisa grabbed her bag. "Guess your mystery man ghosted you," she said casually. Tasha didn't smile. "He's not like that." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "You barely know him." Tasha looked back at the empty table. "I know enough." Lisa shrugged. "Suit yourself." She left. The bell rang. Silence settled again. Tasha wiped down the last few tables, saved the corner one for last, like always. She stood there, cloth in hand, staring at the surface. It felt colder today, empty, different. She ran her hand across it slowly, then stopped, because for the first time, it didn't feel like he would be back tomorrow. A chill ran through her. She didn't know why, but she felt it. Deep, unshakable. Derek counted the register. "Don't forget to lock up the back," he said without looking at her. "I won't." He grabbed his coat. "You worry too much about things that don't matter," he added. Then he left. The door closed. The bell gave one last weak ring. Tasha stood alone in the diner. The lights dimmed. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space. She walked back to the corner table, sat down, just for a moment, something she had never done before. She looked at the seat across from her, empty, still, and for the first time, she felt it. Not just curiosity, not just confusion, but something deeper, something heavier. Loss. She didn't understand it, didn't know why it hit so hard. But it did. Because somehow, without her realizing it, he had become part of her routine, part of her day, part of something steady in a life that had very little of it. And now, he was gone. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the coin, turned it in her fingers, the only thing he had left behind. What did you mean?" she whispered softly. The diner didn't answer. The city didn't answer. Only silence, and the growing feeling that something had ended, before she even understood what it was. Outside, the night settled in, cold, quiet, unforgiving, and somewhere in that silence, a question lingered. Where did he go? Tasha didn't sleep much that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that empty chair. The way the light hit it. The way it felt colder than it should have. Like something had been taken out of the room and not replaced. Morning came anyway. It always did. She moved through her routine slower this time. Less urgency. Less expectation. The coin still sat on the kitchen table, catching the weak morning light. Her grandmother looked at her over a cup of tea. "You're quiet today," she said. But Tasha shrugged. "Just tired." But it wasn't just that. It was the kind of tired that came from not knowing, from something unfinished. Jamal didn't say much either. He just packed his bag and left early, mumbling something about school. Tasha watched him go, then grabbed her jacket. The bus ride felt empty. Not long, not loud, just empty. She didn't look out the window this time, didn't tap her fingers, didn't rush. Because part of her already knew what she would see, or what she wouldn't. When she stepped off the bus, the wind hit harder than usual, sharp, cold, unforgiving. She walked to the diner. Same sign, same flicker, same door. She pushed it open. The bell rang. Warm air rushed out to meet her. Voices filled the space, but something was different. Not quiet, not calm, tense. Every head turned, All at once. Toward her, Tasha stopped. Just inside the doorway, her heart skipped, because this was new. "What's going on?" she asked softly. Lisa rushed over, eyes wide. "You didn't hear?" she whispered. "Hear what?" Lisa grabbed her arm. "Just come here." She pulled Tasha slightly to the side toward the counter. And that's when Tasha saw them, outside, through the diner windows, 3 black cars, long, shiny, parked perfectly along the curb, engines still running, doors closed, windows tinted. The kind of cars that didn't belong in this neighborhood. The kind of cars that made people stare. "What is that?" Tasha asked. Lisa shook her head. "I don't know, but they've been there for 10 minutes, and they're asking for you." Tasha blinked. "For me?" Before Lisa could answer, the door opened, as the bell rang again, and everything inside the diner went still. A man stepped in, tall, sharp, dressed in a dark suit that looked like it cost more than everything inside the building combined. His shoes didn't make a sound on the floor, but his presence did. People shifted, quieted, watched. He took a few steps forward. His eyes scanned the room once, then stopped. On her. "Tasha Williams," he said. His voice was calm, controlled, but it carried. Tasha felt her chest tighten. "Yes," she said slowly. He nodded once, like he had already known. "My name is Daniel Hayes." The name didn't mean anything to her, but the way the room reacted, that did. Derek straightened immediately. Lisa stepped back. Even the customers seemed to sit a little quieter. "I'd like to speak with you," Daniel said. Tasha hesitated, and her hands tightened slightly at her sides. "About what?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he glanced around the diner, at the tables, at the worn floors, at the corner seat, then back at her. "About my father." The words hit something deep, without warning. Tasha's breath caught. "Your father?" she repeated. Daniel nodded. "Yes." A pause, then, "Leonard Hayes." The room disappeared. The noise, the people, the diner itself, all of it faded, leaving just those 2 words. Leonard Hayes, the old man, the one who sat in the corner, the one who said tomorrow. Tasha's voice barely came out. He didn't come yesterday," she said. Daniel's expression shifted, just slightly. Something softer, something heavier. "No," he said quietly. "He wouldn't have." Tasha felt her heart drop. "So why?" she asked. Daniel looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, there was something in his eyes. Not power, not control, something else. "Grief, Because," he said slowly, "he passed away the night before." The words landed like a weight, heavy, final. Tasha didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. Passed away. The phrase echoed in her head, over and over. "No," she whispered. It didn't make sense. He was there. He was talking. He said tomorrow. "You're mistaken," she said, shaking her head. "He was fine. He was just here." Daniel didn't argue, didn't correct her. He just stood there, letting the moment settle. "I understand this is difficult," he said. But Tasha barely heard him. Her mind was somewhere else. Back at that table, that morning, that word, tomorrow. Her chest tightened, and because now, it meant something completely different. "You said you wanted to talk," she said finally, her voice unsteady. Daniel nodded. Yes. A pause, then. He spoke about you. Tasha blinked. What? My father, Daniel said. He spoke about you, often. The words didn't make sense. Not yet. Why? She asked. Daniel took a slow breath. Because, he said, you were the only one who treated him like he mattered. Silence fell over the diner. Deep. Unavoidable. Tasha felt something shift inside her. Something she didn't have words for. I just did my job, she said quietly. Daniel shook his head. No, he said. That same word. The same way. The same certainty. No, you didn't. Tasha's chest tightened again. Because she had heard that before. From the old man himself. When suddenly, everything felt connected. Everything felt bigger. More important. More real. Daniel stepped closer. Not threatening. Not forceful. Just certain. There are things you need to know, he said. Tasha swallowed, her heart beating faster now. What kind of things? She asked. Daniel looked at her for a long moment, then said, the kind that change everything. Tasha stood there, in the middle of the diner, surrounded by people who had ignored her just minutes ago, now watching, now waiting, and for the first time, she felt it. The shift, the moment where everything she thought she understood was about to break. Why did a billionaire care about her? The diner didn't feel like a diner anymore. It felt smaller, tighter, like the walls had moved in just enough to make everything harder to breathe. Tasha stood frozen, her hands still at her sides, her apron slightly twisted from when Lisa had pulled her earlier. Across from her, Daniel Hayes didn't rush. He didn't pressure. He simply waited. Like he knew she would stay. Like he knew she needed answers more than she needed to walk away. Can we talk somewhere quieter? He asked. Tasha glanced around. Every eye was still on her. Derek stood near the register, pretending not to stare, but clearly listening. Lisa hovered behind the counter, her curiosity barely hidden. The corner table sat empty, waiting. Tasha nodded. Okay. Daniel gestured gently toward the booth by the window. They sat across from each other, the same way she had sat across from the old man the night before. And suddenly, it felt like a continuation, not a new moment, the same story, but just deeper. Daniel folded his hands on the table. My father, he began, was not the man people thought he was. Tasha didn't interrupt, didn't move. She just listened. He built one of the largest logistics companies in the country, Daniel continued. People called him a genius, a visionary. He paused, but he stopped believing them. Tasha frowned slightly. What do you mean? Daniel's eyes drifted toward the window. To him, he said, success made people dishonest. A beat. People treated him differently when they knew who he was. They smiled more, listened more, agreed more. He looked back at her. But none of it was real. Tasha felt something stir inside her, because she understood that, in a different way. But she understood it. So he left, Daniel said. Daniel saw. Left what? Everything. The word landed heavy. He stepped away from the company, from the name, from the life people recognized. Tasha blinked. He chose to become invisible. Her breath caught. Invisible. The word echoed. because she had lived that her whole life. He wanted to see who people really were, Daniel continued. Without money, without influence, without power. Tasha looked down at the table, then slowly back up. And he came here? She asked. Daniel nodded. Among other places, he said. But this became one of his regular stops. Tasha swallowed. The diner? Yes. A small, almost sad smile touched Daniel's lips. He said it reminded him of something honest. Tasha didn't know what to say, because nothing about this place had ever felt special. Just worn, just hard, just survival. And you? She asked carefully. You knew about this? Daniel nodded again. I tried to stop him, he admitted. At first. Why? Because I thought he was wasting his time. The honesty surprised her. But I was wrong, he added quietly. A pause, then. He was searching for something, Daniel said. What? Daniel held her gaze. Someone. The word landed differently, sharper, closer. Tasha felt her chest tighten. What kind of someone? She asked. Daniel didn't hesitate. Someone who would be kind, even when it didn't benefit them. Silence filled the space between them, deep, unavoidable. Tasha's fingers curled slightly against her lap. That's not rare, she said softly. Daniel didn't respond right away. Instead, he looked around the diner again, at the worn booths, at the chipped counters, and at the people who had watched her struggle day after day without noticing. Then back at her. It is, he said. The certainty in his voice left no room for argument. Tasha shook her head slightly. I just did what anyone would do. No, Daniel said. Again. That same word. The same weight. No. Tasha felt her breath catch. Because now, it wasn't just the old man saying it. It was his son. The same belief. The same conviction. My father kept records, Daniel continued. Records? He observed, Daniel said. Quietly. Consistently. Tasha's stomach dropped slightly. Observed me? Daniel nodded. For nearly 2 years. The room felt colder, even with the heat running. He watched how you treated him, Daniel said. But more than that, he watched how you treated everyone else. Tasha's mind raced. 2 years? That long? She thought back. To the mornings, the coffee, the small gestures, the moments she barely remembered. He saw you help a child find his mother, Daniel said. Tasha blinked. He saw you give your meal to a man who couldn't pay, he continued. Her throat tightened. He saw you stay late to clean, even when no one asked you to. Each word hit like a memory she hadn't realized mattered. Moments she had done without thinking, without expecting anything back. You never looked at him like he was less, Daniel said softly. Tasha's eyes burned slightly. I didn't know who he was, she whispered. Daniel nodded. That's exactly why he chose you. The words settled into the space, heavy, final. Tasha stared at him. Chose me? For what? Daniel took a breath, then reached into his coat, pulled out a folder, and set it gently on the table between them. This, he said, is why I'm here. Tasha looked down at it, her reflection faintly visible on the smooth surface. Her hands trembled slightly. Open it, Daniel said. She hesitated, just for a second, because something inside her knew this was it. The moment. The answer. To everything. She reached forward, placed her hand on the folder, and slowly opened it. What she saw inside made her heart stop. Why would he leave something like this to her? The paper trembled slightly in Tasha's hands, not because of the cold, but because of what she was seeing. Numbers. Too many numbers. More than she had ever seen in one place. Her eyes struggled to process it. 500,000, she whispered. Her voice barely made it past her lips. Daniel didn't react, and he just watched her, letting her take it in, letting it land. Tasha flipped the page. Another document. Ownership transfer. Her name, clearly printed. Tasha Williams. She blinked. This isn't right, she said quickly. There's some mistake. Daniel shook his head. There isn't. Her heart started pounding faster. This says... She swallowed. This says the diner? Yes, Daniel said. He purchased it 6 months ago. Tasha's head snapped up. What? He bought it quietly, Daniel explained. Under a different name. No one here knew. Tasha looked around the diner, at the cracked floor, at the worn tables, at Derek, still standing near the counter, trying not to look like he was listening. He owned this place, she asked. Daniel nodded. And now, he said gently, you do. The words didn't feel real, and they didn't feel possible. They didn't feel like something that could exist in her world. No, she said, shaking her head. I didn't, her voice broke. I didn't do anything for this. Daniel leaned forward slightly. You did everything for this, he said. Tasha's eyes filled. No, she repeated. I just served him coffee. Daniel's gaze didn't waver. You treated him like a person, he said. A pause. Do you know how rare that is? Tasha didn't answer, because suddenly, she wasn't sure anymore. Before she could speak again, a voice cut through the diner. This is ridiculous. Sharp, cold, unfamiliar. Everyone turned. The door had opened again. Another man stepped in, older, dressed just as sharply as Daniel. But there was something different about him, something harder, more rigid. And he walked straight toward them, didn't hesitate, didn't look around, just focused. On her. I assume this is her, he said, stopping beside the table. Daniel's expression tightened slightly. Michael, he said. Tasha looked between them. Who is that? She asked quietly. My uncle, Daniel replied. Michael let out a small, dismissive breath. And I see you've already started this nonsense, he said. Tasha felt her chest tighten again. Nonsense, she repeated. Michael didn't look at her. Not fully. Just a quick glance, like she wasn't worth the time. My brother was not in his right mind toward the end, he said flatly. We all know that. Daniel's jaw tightened. That's not true. Michael ignored him. Instead, he gestured toward the papers. This, he said, is exactly the kind of manipulation we were worried about. Tasha's stomach dropped. Manipulation, she said. Michael finally looked at her directly, his eyes cold, assessing. You expect us to believe that after 2 years of serving coffee, you somehow convinced a man like Leonard Hayes to hand over his estate? He said. The words hit like a slap, not loud, but sharp, cutting. I didn't convince him of anything, Tasha said, her voice shaking slightly. Michael smirked. Of course you didn't. The sarcasm was thick, unmistakable. Tasha felt that familiar heat rise again. The same feeling she had yesterday. The same weight. But stronger now. Because this wasn't just a stranger in a diner. This was someone trying to take something away. Something she didn't even understand yet. He chose her, Daniel said firmly. Michael turned to him. And you're just going to accept that? He asked. Daniel didn't hesitate. Yes. Michael laughed softly. Unbelievable. He stepped closer to the table, placed his hand on the folder. This will be contested, he said. Tasha's heart dropped again. Contested? She repeated. Yes, Michael said. Legally. The word echoed. Heavy. Threatening. You don't think we're just going to hand over millions of dollars and property to someone he met in a diner, do you? Tasha's hands tightened. I didn't ask for any of this, she said. Michael shrugged. Doesn't matter. Silence fell again. Thicker this time. Heavier. Then, another voice spoke. Calm. Measured. From behind them. Actually, it does matter. Everyone turned. A woman stepped forward, older, professional, holding a briefcase. Well, my name is Sarah Whitman, she said. I'm Leonard Hayes' estate attorney. Michael's expression shifted slightly. Not surprised, but not pleased either. Then you already know this is going to court, he said. Sarah didn't flinch. I also know the will is airtight, she replied. She stepped closer, placed another document on the table. Signed, witnessed, recorded. She looked at Tasha. Would you like to hear what he said? Tasha hesitated, her heart pounding, then nodded. Yes. Sarah opened the document, then pressed a small button on her device. A voice filled the diner. Familiar. Soft. Steady. The old man. I spent my life surrounded by people who knew my name, his voice said. The room went completely still. No one saw me. Tasha felt tears well up. Then I met her. A pause. She didn't know who I was. Another pause. She didn't care. Tasha's hand moved to her mouth, shaking. She treated me with dignity, when she had nothing to gain. The words hit deep, too deep. And that, he said, is the only kind of person I trust with what I built. Silence. Total. Complete. Then, the recording ended. No one spoke. No one moved. Because there was nothing left to argue. Nothing left to question. Michael's expression hardened, but even he didn't speak right away. Because the truth was undeniable. Tasha sat there, frozen, overwhelmed. Because this wasn't just about money, or property, or ownership. It was about something much bigger. Something she hadn't even realized she had been carrying. Something someone else had seen. Before she ever did, her voice came out barely above a whisper. Oh, why me? And this time, no one interrupted. Because everyone in that room already knew the answer. What would she do with everything he left behind? The diner was quiet again, but not the same kind of quiet. This wasn't the heavy silence from before. This was something else. Something waiting. Tasha sat at the booth, the folder still open in front of her. The papers hadn't moved, but everything else had. The room, the people, the way they looked at her. Derek wasn't leaning anymore. He stood straight, unsure of where to place his hands. Lisa hovered near the counter, her eyes wide, not with curiosity now, but something closer to respect. Daniel remained calm, watching her carefully. Michael had stepped back, arms crossed, his expression still tight, but quieter now. And Tasha. She felt like she was standing in the middle of two different lives, the one she had known, and the one she didn't understand yet. Her fingers traced the edge of the document. The number still didn't feel real. The ownership didn't feel real. None of it did. But the voice, his voice, that felt real. It stayed with her. Clear, steady, honest. She closed the folder slowly, looked up. "I can't leave," she said. The words came out before she fully understood them. Daniel tilted his head slightly. "Leave? This place," she said, glancing around. "I can't just walk away from it." Michael scoffed softly. "That would be the smartest thing you could do." Tasha didn't look at him, didn't respond, because she wasn't talking to him. "I've seen what this place is," she continued. "What it could be." Daniel leaned forward slightly. "And what do you think it could be?" he asked. Tasha took a breath. A real one. The kind she hadn't taken in a long time. "A place where people don't feel invisible," she said. The words settled into the room, different from everything that had been said before. Not about money, not about ownership, about something else. She stood up slowly, walked toward the corner table, the one that had been empty just days ago, the one that had started all of this. She ran her hand across it, then turned back. "He didn't come here because it was perfect," she said. "He came here because it was real." Daniel nodded slightly. "That's what he said." Tasha's eyes softened. "Then I want to keep it that way." A pause, then. "Better." The word hung there, simple, but full. But Michael let out a quiet breath. "And what does that mean exactly?" he asked. Tasha met his gaze this time. Not defensive, not afraid, just steady. "It means no one gets turned away because they can't pay," she said. Derek blinked. "What?" "It means if someone needs a meal, they get one," Tasha continued. "No questions." Lisa's hand moved to her mouth. "It means people like him," she glanced at the empty chair, "don't sit alone anymore." The room felt warmer, not because the heat changed, but because something inside it did. Michael shook his head. "That's not how businesses work." Tasha gave a small, quiet smile. "Maybe not," she said, "but that's how this one will." Daniel watched her, carefully, then nodded. "He would have liked that," he said. Tasha's chest tightened again, but this time, it didn't hurt, yet it felt right. Later that week, things began to change. Not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily. A small sign appeared near the door, handwritten, simple. "If you're hungry, come in." People noticed. At first, they hesitated. Then slowly, they stepped inside. A man who had been sleeping behind the grocery store. A woman who counted coins before ordering. A teenager who hadn't eaten all day. They came in, and Tasha served them, the same way she had served him. Warm, quiet, without judgment. Derek struggled at first, complained, questioned, but over time, even he softened, because something about it worked. Not in numbers, not in profit, but in something harder to measure. The place felt different, alive. One afternoon, Tasha stood behind the counter, while watching as Lisa laughed with a regular customer. Jamal sat in a booth, doing homework. Her grandmother came in sometimes now, sitting near the window, wrapped in a blanket, smiling softly. The diner wasn't just a diner anymore. It was something else, something bigger. And yet, that corner table remained untouched, always clean, always ready. A small plaque now sat on its edge, simple, engraved. "You are seen here." People noticed it. Some asked about it. Tasha would just smile and say, "It's for someone who mattered." One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the windows gold, the bell above the door rang again. Tasha looked up. An older man stepped inside. Quiet, slow, worn. He looked around uncertainly, like he wasn't sure if he belonged. For a moment, no one moved. Then, Tasha did. She grabbed a mug, filled it with coffee, walked over, and set it down in front of him. "Welcome," she said gently. The man looked up at her, surprised, then nodded. Just once. Tasha smiled, the same way she always had, because she understood now. It wasn't about being seen. It was about seeing others and choosing, every single time, to care. She glanced briefly at the corner table, then back at the man in front of her, and for the first time, everything made sense. The loss, the questions, the gift. It was never just about what he left behind. It was about what she chose to carry forward. And she would carry it, the same way she always had, quietly, kindly, without expecting anything in return, because somewhere, somehow, that always mattered, more than anything else ever could. And if this story touched you, leave a comment below. You don't have to write anything long. Just type 1 if you believe kindness still matters, or type 0 if this story made you think twice about it. Sometimes, even the smallest response means more than you know. And if you want more stories like this, real, emotional, and unforgettable, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because the next story might stay with you even longer.